Subclassing in ESO is going to make heavy attack builds stronger than ever. And while Magica Sorcerer is still a good starting class for this style of play, you now have even more options for alternate skill lines and passives, especially if you don't want to play with pets. So in this build guide, I'm going to cover an extremely easy and powerful heavy attack sorcerer build for solo and group content using subclassing to make it even better, and this one is an absolute beast to play. As usual, I'll cover everything you need to know to make it work, from skills to gear to champion points and much more. Timestamps and a written guide will be available down below, and let's jump right into it. Alright everybody, here we are back on the heavy attack Magica Sorcerer, and it's going to be time to update this one for subclassing. Like I said in the intro, there's some very interesting combinations now when it comes to subclassing options for heavy attack builds. We're even getting a new mythic for heavy attack focused builds. So yeah, things are getting pretty good. And yeah, let's just jump right into the buff stats here. Use my potion. It's probably close enough. So buff stats, 32,000 or so max magicka, 26k max health, which is very nice, 14k max stamina, really good magicka recoveries. We're going to need that with the mythic, which you'll see in just a few minutes. Really good crit chance. Our weapon spell damage does go up with our back bar glyph, and solid resistances all around. Now we are going to be magicka focused on this build, so 64 points into max magicka. We are using the Thief Mundus just to maximize that crit chance as much as possible. Now, in terms of food, like I said, with the recovery, we do want something with magicka recovery. So Clockwork Citrus Fillet, or you could use the much cheaper Witch Mother's Potent Brew. That would be totally fine as well. But yeah, you're going to need a little bit more magicka recovery on this version of the build, which we'll talk about when we get to the gear sets in just a minute. What else? In terms of consumables, your potions is totally up to you. We do have both our major damage and critical chance buffs on this setup, so a basic magicka potion, totally fine. You could run armor potions if you want to be even tankier on this particular setup. I'm using the Tri-Stat potions. That's going to be nice for soloing more difficult content as well. In terms of the race here, since we're mostly playing solo on this version of the build, I do like Khajiit. You get some good recoveries, which is going to be helpful. You get max stats, always helpful. And then, of course, the 12% critical damage and critical healing buff. This plays so well on Sorcerer with all the crit chance that you saw in those stats. Yeah, this is just a really good option. Of course, other damage races that have max magicka, so like High Elf and Dark Elf, those would be some really good choices as well. But yeah, I think that covers the basics. So let's jump into the gear sets next on the solo heavy attack build. Starting, of course, with the old favorite, Sergeant's Mail is going to still be one of the best heavy attack sets, if not the best, in ESO still. That's because you get all that juicy heavy attack damage on the 5-piece bonus. It stacks up to 4 times with a 5-second duration. Just remember with this, you have about 5 seconds to bar swap, put all your buffs on, and then get back to the front bar to keep up those stacks. It's going to be really important because, yeah, you want to keep that damage bonus rolling as much as possible. But I do like this for soloing too because of the extra health. Even the little bit of extra health recovery there does help with survivability. So we are going to be using a lightning staff here with precise. Shock glyph is going to be very important. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that's going to cover 2 out of the 5 pieces since it is a 2-handed weapon. Heavy chest piece is also another nice piece to pick up. That'll be your 3rd one there. You can see heavy armor chest piece there. You can see I kept the health trait there. It's actually going to buff my damage shield a little bit too since that scales on max health. So yeah, that's mostly for solo content. That's really going to help with your survivability as well. And then just 2 pieces on the jewelry. We've got 2 rings of the Sergeant with the spell damage enchant there, and then Bloodthirsty as the trait. Onto our second 5-piece set, which is called Grave Inevitability. And this is, I think, a pretty underrated or just sort of unknown set, especially when it comes to heavy attack builds. What this does is when you deal damage with a light or heavy attack, you gain a stack for 5 seconds. And then when you have 5 stacks, you generate an aura of focus, which grants you major force. And that's a 20% critical damage bonus. That's huge. And especially for solo content, or even small groups, you may not have a good source of major force. And so this buff becomes incredibly powerful. You can see even for group play, it actually gives your group minor force as well, increasing their crit damage by 10%. But yeah, it's pretty easy to keep the stacks up with this. You can see this is actually the exact same duration of buffs as the Sergeant's Mail set is, so it kind of stacks with that effect as well. And yeah, 20% critical damage is no joke, especially when you'll see all of these sources of crit chance that we have on this build. We're getting close to like 85-90% crit chance when enemies are in execute range. So this does scale really nicely on the solo heavy attack build. But that's what I'm using right now. It is a light armor set. Comes from the Graven Deep dungeon. It's a DLC dungeon. I will have some alternate options. If you don't have access to this, there are some nice crafted sets you can use in place of this one as well. But for this, we are using 4 pieces on the body. So we've got the waist, hands, legs, and feet, all max magicka, all divines there. And then our 5th piece is going to be just the necklace. You can see I had 1 recovery there. I probably don't even need this. This just gave me a little bit of a buffer to work with that new mythic. You'll most likely be able to swap in spell damage and then bloodthirsty for even more overall damage. That's what I'm going to end up doing here. So yeah, that's our second 5-piece set. Let's talk about the mythic next. This is new with update 46 as well. This is the Rakat's Void Mantle mythic. It's a medium armor shoulder. So it doesn't let you use a monster set, right? Because it's a shoulder mythic, but the bonus here is pretty insane. Reduces the damage of your light attacks by 50%, gives you bonus restoration, magicka in this case when you deal a light attack, even more when they're off balance. But the main reason that we're using this, obviously, 50% bonus heavy attack damage. That is insane. Of course, there is a downside, right? Heavy attacks no longer restore resources, but there's a lot of ways that you can sort of get around that. And so you just have a huge source of damage if you're interested in using this mythic. Now, I will have a non-mythic version of this posted in the written guide as well, since I know this is new. Not everybody's going to have it, obviously. But this is going to be something really nice that you can build towards if you're interested in the heavy attack playstyle. I've been testing it out a lot, and it is extremely good. So yeah, that comes in medium. Got the max magicka. I got divines there. It's going to leave just 1 piece left over. That's going to be Slimecraw as the 1-piece monster set here. It's going to give us a nice critical chance bonus. I kept this medium as well just to have a couple of medium traits for a little bit of extra armor. But yeah, max magicka there as well. And then in terms of your back bar weapon, we're going to have another lightning staff here on the back bar. Lightning staff is very important. We'll talk about that when we get to skills. But you do want your trait to be infused. You do want the weapon and spell damage enchant there on the back bar. I just have the Maelstrom perfected. But literally, this could be any lightning staff that you want. It's not going to make a huge difference either way. But yeah, that is the setup. So again, we've got 5 pieces Sergeant's Mail with the front bar weapon. Got 5 pieces Grave Inevitability, light armor, and 1 jewelry piece there. We've got the new Void Mantle Mythic, Slimecraw helmet. And yeah, check out the written guide. I'll have lots of alternate set options there if you are interested. But let's talk about skills next, which is where things are going to get really interesting in update 46 for heavy attack builds. Now, I'm not here to say that this is the best version, but in my own testing, this has been extremely powerful and also a lot of fun to play. In terms of what we are mixing for subclassing, we've got Stormcalling from the Sorcerer. That's going to be our primary skill line. You need 1 from your base class, right? So the base class on this build obviously is the Sorcerer. But along with that, we are mixing in a Nightblade skill line. This is Assassination from the Nightblade class. And then we are mixing in Gravelord from the Necromancer class. There's a lot of reasons for this, but as I've tested this, as far as Sorcerer skill lines, Stormcalling probably one of the best ones, especially for heavy attack builds and for soloing in general. I mean, for soloists, you got Crit Surge, passive healing, Major Brutality and Sorcery. You want this. Doesn't get much better than that. You got Boundless Storm. You got an armor buff as well. So you got a heal and an armor buff in 1 skill line. That's actually extremely good for subclassing. Throw in, you even got an Execute if you want to use it. And hey, you got some of the best passives in ESO as well. Capacitor is huge for this build. As you saw with the Mythic, we don't have any Magicka recovery from heavy attacks, so we actually need to stack a bit of Magicka recovery. This is super helpful. Energize, you got the bonus shock damage, amplitude, even more bonus damage. And we're not really using Expert Mage in this loadout, but you could get some bonus weapon and spell damage there too. So yeah, that's why I'm keeping Storm Calling as the primary Sorcerer skill line. I think it's awesome, especially for heavy attack builds. But these other two skill lines add a ton of passive damage as well. Skills like Relentless Focus. If you're doing a 2-bar build, you can simply slot this on your back bar and get to up to 400 weapon and spell damage passively without ever using the ability. So that's what I'm doing on this build. It's extremely easy, and it's a nice passive buff. Speaking of passives, we have, bonus crit chance when flanking an enemy, tons of resource sustain, again, incredibly helpful for this build, even more crit chance due to pressure points, and 10% bonus critical damage with an assassination ability slotted. So again, we're going for a lot of passives. Even the slotted skills are giving us passives. The goal with this is just to still keep it very simple. Heavy attack builds are simple, right? But even more powerful because of the different passives that we have access to. Speaking of which, Gravelord Sacrifice. This does buff Necromancer abilities, but it also buffs dots. And that's going to count towards our Lightning Staff. The dot portion of that, the heavy attack ticks, those are going to get boosted by 15% when Gravelord Sacrifice is active. And then probably the best one here, Death Knell. We talked about the bonus crit chance and execute range. An extra 20%. That's really huge. So that's kind of the breakdown. That's why I picked those additional subclassing skill lines. Like I said, it's not the only way to do a subclassing heavy attack builds, but I did like this one a lot. It has a lot of great synergy, and it plays and feels really nice as well. So let's go over the skill bars quickly. Starting on our front bar, we're going to start with an execute. Like I said, you can use either Assassination Impale, or you can use Storm Calling, Mage's Wrath. Mage's Wrath has a AoE component, while Assassination does a little bit more single target. So that's really just going to depend on the situation. You can swap those out as you need to. Next up, we've got Gravelord Sacrifice. Like I said, this is our main Necromancer ability. It's going to buff our dots, particularly our heavy attack damage. So that's a really nice buff to have. And next up, we actually have 2 Scribing abilities. And you guys are going to want to get to know these 2 skills, because they're extremely helpful for subclassing. One of these is the Soul Magic ability, Warding Soul. I have this basically set up as a damage shield. I'll go over the scripts in a minute. But since I'm not using Daedric Summoning, I don't have access to Harden Ward on my Sorcerer. But I'm able to set up a damage shield using Scribing, which is almost as good. Maybe even a little bit better with some nice buffs that I didn't have on the Sorcerer, without having to invest in that entire Daedric Summoning skill line. So yeah, I'm still going to use Daedric Summoning on other builds that are pet focused, and I can use that shield there. But for this case, when I want to be more damage focused, I took all damage lines. This is going to be a nice alternative. Same thing with Shocking Contingency. This is the Mage Guild Scribe skill. This is giving me AoE shock damage. I'm using the Sorcerer class script, so I get even more bonus shock damage, and I also get Minor Force for 22 seconds. So that's a nice way to get Minor Force without having to worry about running Barbed Trap. Speaking of Mage's Guild, we just have Inner Light. That's for the passive Max Magicka, as well as Major Savagery and Prophecy. We didn't have that any other way on the build, so that's a nice way to get that there. And then the Nightblade Ultimate Soul Harvest is really nice for, getting Ultimate back. We also get 20% bonus damage for 8 seconds against a target. So that's really nice as well. And if you have, if you're using Mage's Wrath as your execute here, you want at least one Nightblade ability to get all of the great assassination passives. So you'll be able to get that through Soul Harvest as well. Okay, on to the back part, we've got Blockade of Storms. This obviously is from Destruction Staff. We're using 2 Destro Staff abilities, and this one is really just to proc our glyph on the back bar staff, as well as set enemies off balance, and that's going to be really important for heavy attacks. Enemies who are off balance take a ton of bonus damage from heavy attacks, so you want to proc off balance if you can on cooldown. The way you do that, again, is you have Blockade of Storms on your back bar, and then you just have a shock glyph on your front bar. That's a really easy way to do it. Next up, we have Elemental Drain, and the good thing about this is it gives major breach, great for bosses, so you're going to reduce their armor by about 6,000. Now, yes, there are many ways you could do this. There's even a Nightblade skill that does this. There's a Necromancer skill that does this, so you have some options here. But for this build, if you're using the Void Mantle, this is the only skill that gives you minor magicka steal. So that's giving you about 300 magicka every tick, every 2 seconds. And that extra magicka actually helps a lot with the sustain on this build. So I do recommend this, especially if you're going to run that new mythic once you get it. If you're not running the mythic, then you could simply use, like I said, maybe Boneyard here from the Necromancer would be better because that's AoE major breach. Next up, we have Relentless Focus. This comes from the Nightblade class, the Assassination skill line right here. I'm using the Stamina Morph because, again, I'm not going to cast this. I'm purely using it for the bonus weapon and spell damage at 10 stacks. And also, I need a Nightblade skill on my back bar to get all these juicy passives, right? Well, mainly just this one. Hemorrhage, you can see right there the requirement with an Assassination ability slotted. If I don't have any of those, then I don't get the bonus 10% crit damage on the back bar. Next up, we have our Sorcerer buffs from Stormcalling. So that's Boundless Storm for armor, more shock damage, a bit of movement speed, and then crit surge. Major Brutality and Sorcery, tons of healing. The heal ticks are extremely high on this build as well. So yeah, that's going to be great for soloing. And then our ultimate, we have the Necromancer Gravelord Glacial Colossus skill. This is actually a really good ultimate for soloing. I've found it gives you major vulnerability. So that's a long 17-second duration, increasing damage taken by 10%. You also get the stun, which is pretty nice for soloing as well. We don't have any other stuns on this build. And you get the Death Knell passive as well. So that's super important for maximizing your damage. So yeah, that's our skill loadout. Again, check out the written guide if you want to see the alternate skills listed there. But I did promise I would talk about those scripts. So talking about the damage shield first and why I really like this. So we got the damage shield script, obviously. Sage's Remedy is just kind of nice if you're going to be soloing. It's an extra heal, 10-second heal over time, so that's kind of good. You could maybe do Druid's Resurgence, especially using the Void Mantle mythic. That might actually be kind of helpful too. And then all of these, honestly, we kind of have. I mean, you can put Empower here. We're going to put Empower on the other ability, but that is an option. And I'm just running Vitality, so the nice thing about that is it actually increases the size of my next shield by 12%. So if I'm in a really difficult situation, my next shield is going to be more powerful than the first, and I get even more healing. It's 12% healing received and damage shield strength, so it's a pretty nice combination there. Now, the other scribed ability that we had is called Ulfsild's Contingency, and this one is actually really important if you're going to use the Void Mantle mythic, if you're moving away from Oaken Soul Ring, which some of you might want to try with this new mythic just to get a little bit more damage. This skill is perfect for that because you can make it a shock damage skill. You could do a ton of different signature scripts. I've got Class Mastery, which is just bonus shock damage since I don't have any pets. But you could reduce your damage taken. You could do a shock damage over time. That's pretty good as well. But the affix script that you really want, and this is great for any kind of class subclassing build, Minor Force, because not a lot of class skills have Minor Force. And with subclassing, you're not going to have a lot of bar space. You're probably not going to have enough room to run Barb Trap. So getting Minor Force from some skill or even on a set or something like that, that is a really good idea. So that's what I'm doing here with Ulfsild's Contingency. All right, that's the skills. Let's talk about the rotation next. So pretty simple. We're going to run through our main back bar abilities. We can pop the ultimate when we got it. And the only thing other than that is typically I'll start with Gravelord Sacrifice just on the front bar. It's more like a buff than an active skill or damaging ability, so just kind of treat that as a buff. And then basically as those buff timers fall off, that's when we're going to rebuff everything. So here's how it kind of looks. Gravelord on the front bar. There's Wall, for Elemental Drain, for 2 Sorcerer buffs. Drop your ultimate if you have it. You can see there's our off balance, so we're going to do heavy attack into Contingency. heavy attack contingency, rebuff Gravelord, and then bar swap back. Here you only really have to lay down the wall again. You can do some more heavy attack contingencies on the front bar. You can rebuff. We got off balance again, which is perfect timing. You can actually use your Nightblade Soul Harvest here for a little bit more bonus damage. We're just going to heavy attack contingency until the enemy's in execute range. I'll have to rebuff one more time probably. And I can go into contingency and then executes. That can be Mage's Wrath or Impale, whatever you have here. There you go. All right, switching over to champion points next. As usual, in the written guide, you'll be able to find different versions of this for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 champion points. But the main slotted stars I have right now, Steed's Blessing, followed up with Master Gatherer, Gifted Rider, and then Warmount. Over in the blue tree, we're going to want to go into heavy attack damage first. And that is down here in Weapons Expert. That's 20% bonus heavy attack damage done. That's really nice. Follow that up with Fighting Finesse, an extra 8% critical damage and healing. Deadly Aim for our single target damage. That's actually going to help out the Lightning Staff. And then Thaumaturge for damage over time. That's going to be your 4 slotted stars in the blue tree. Oh, don't forget as well, in Staving Death, pick up these defensive passives, especially Preparation for 10% bonus damage reduction. And then finally in the red tree, you're going to pick up the usual here. Rejuvenation. You do want that recovery. Fortified for some armor, Vitality for some max health. But then what's been really working on this build, again, if you're using the Void Mantle, is Siphoning Spells. That's going to give you 1500 Magicka back when you kill an enemy. That's very helpful. Now, finally, for the outfit style here, if you're curious, got a different combination of Worm Cult on the helmet. We've got some Morag Tong pieces, particularly the robe. And then we're combining Dragon Bone. That's going to be on the shoulders, gloves. We got Minotaur on the waist, as well as Dragon Bone again on the feet. And then the staff, it's going to be the Zivkin staff. Everybody, just a quick note that we are updating our members-only builds now to incorporate subclassing, like the brand new Druid build I released this week for members, which combines powerful fire and lightning magic along with animal companions to fight by your side. I've been having a ton of fun with this one as well, because it truly feels like a brand new class, a fully functioning Druid in ESO. It's epic. The members of our Tier 2 Elite Squad can unlock this build right now, along with dozens of other members-only videos, like our classless Barbarian build, Unkillable Arcanist, and many more. So if you're interested in supporting the channel, it really is the best way to do that because you get a truckload of bonus content, not to mention early access to videos and members-only Discord. But just be sure to select the Elite Squad option if you're interested, as it's the only way to get that new content. And to get started, just click on the Join button down below or the membership link in the description to see our complete library of members-only videos. Huge shout out, as always, to our channel members who make this channel possible. I could not do what I do without you, so thanks again. Thanks to all of you for watching this video. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.